My name is Yongo-Bure. I taught economics in the University of Khartoum, Sudan. Now I'm teaching economics and social studies in Kettering University in Flint, Michigan. Southern Sudan is one of the most underdeveloped territories in the world. And as far as education is concerned, there was no education during the colonial period until 1956, when the country became independent. And there was no focus on educating the people in Southern Sudan. Therefore, the national government did nothing. Whatever little was left during the colonial period and whatever was done by the national governments was mainly geared towards a program of, Arabization, Islamization, and more focusing really on academic education. And what didn't happen here was that because of lack of development in the Southern Sudan and government policy of assimilation, cultural assimilation, war was provoked, and during the war for 17 years, nothing happened. Education was only either in people, refugees in in the neighboring countries, or those who were in the northern Sudan, or in the bushes when people took refuge. But of course, because in a war there is no economy, you cannot provide proper education. Then we had peace in 1972, and hardly anything was done about education. The national government, the regional government that was established in the South did not pay much attention to education, partly because of lack of resources and particularly because of lack of prioritization. Frustration by the youth contributed to the outbreak of the Second War in 1983 until peace was achieved in 2005. So right now, one of the priority is to develop a sound educational system from the basic level up to the tertiary level, university level. Some educational programs did take place even though they were very poor under the conditions, and so this now needs to be established on a firm basis and then expanded to cover as much of the population as possible. Good enough, unlike in the first peace period, in this peace period, Southern Sudan exports oil, and so there's some resource at least to begin something. There's some resource to begin some educational system. So a good portion of that money should go for education. Secondly, we cannot begin just concentrating on basic education. We must also emphasize tertiary education because there is no trained human resources to man the government system. There's a lot of demand for establishing an efficient government, and there's hardly any higher institution facilities in the Southern Sudan. There were universities established before the war and during the war in Khartoum. The university that existed in the South was moved to Khartoum. Two more were established. And if these universities can be moved to the South, they will help a lot in training people for the various levels of administration, as well as reconstruction and development projects. So we need to, on an emergency basis, begin to transfer these universities back to the South. It will take some time, but we can begin with the first years moving in, the second years moving in, and while those ones who are already in can finish where they are finishing. We also had people who grew up during these more than 2 decades of war without education. Either they were fighting, or they were displaced, or refugees. We need to capture some of these people through some remedial programs like establishing evening classes, or some kind of informal education for children who are gone beyond the school age. But their programs needs to be developed such that it is different from that of the basic education, which should be the basis for long-term educational program. Therefore, the challenge of education in Southern Sudan is really at all levels. Improve literacy, capture some of the people who went without education in the more than 2 decades of war, but emphasize on basic education. Right now, the enrollment, say, in basic education from primary 1 to primary 8 is about 20% of the population. If we could raise it in the next 5 to 6 years, double it. But then when these kids graduate at a young age without secondary school, they will be vulnerable without the skills. So we need a commensurate expansion in secondary school from grade 9 to grade 12, so that the graduates of these primary schools, a reasonable number of them, can continue, and by the time they finish, they're grown up, they have got trainable skills, and this could, in the next decade, provide a reasonable pool of human resources. But of course, we need trained people to do the job. So we also need teachers training so that we can meet the expansion, because without properly trained teachers, you will find that the educational system will be defective. Children repeat many classes, get frustrated, and don't finish school, drop out, and this will have some consequences, because when they already educated, they don't have the skills, they go for employment in town, and without the skills, they will not be employable. This will lead to many social consequences. So really, in real terms, we need an educational system that can last up to grade 12. After grade 12, if we begin the universities, transferring the universities right now, maybe by the next 5 to 6 years, we will have established full universities in the Southern Sudan. Of course, tertiary education does not have to concentrate on universities or teachers training college. We can have agricultural institutes. We have commercial institutes for training accountants, people to do the mechanics, to do carpentry, joinery, some of the technical skills which are necessary to develop the economy. So at the moment, really, we need education in Southern Sudan at all levels. Prioritization will lead to basic literacy, that is basic education, a few high-level training to meet some managerial and professional skills. But in the next 10 years, we want a full rounded educational system which will sustain these developments. One way could be to import teachers from neighboring countries, or students who are educated in neighboring countries could be supported in 2 years, 3 years programs to come and reinforce the pool of human resources which can help us realize these objectives.